Okay, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate, who is sideways.
I am sideways.
If he was upside down, he would be in Australia. So I guess he's, I don't know, he's in Ukraine. He's volunteering in Ukraine. That's why he's sideways from us. And we are joined tonight by author Frank Luke.
Hello.
And we are getting together tonight to talk about Robert W. Service's poem, The Bruiser. Before we get to that, I did want to mention, if you like my work, if you would like to support that, you can do so through subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great, and get access to a couple of extras as well by doing so, which I need to post this month. I recorded it, but I have not posted it. Anyway, so, and the link to that will be in the show description. Also, the link to Frank Luke's blog will be in the show description as well. Having said that, Sideways Nate has volunteered to read the poem for us tonight. So I am going to put that up on our screen, and you guys can let me know when you see that. Okay, Nate, when you're ready.
The Bruiser by Robert W. Service. So iron grim and icy cool, I bored in on him like a bull. As if one with the solid ground, I took his blows round after round. Glutton for punishment am I, rather than quit, prepared to die. Like dancing master was the boy, graceful and light, a boxer's joy. He flapped a left and tapped a right. I laughed, because his blows were light. The gong was like a golden chime, as darkly I abode my time. It's hard to stand 10 grilling rounds. I saw, despite his leaps and bounds, that he was tired, failing fast, but little longer could he last, while I, as solid as a rock, grinned and withstood shock after shock. Round 8, I launched to the attack. I gave him all, held nothing back. Disdained defense with hammer blows, the blood was spouting from his nose. One eye cut open, glistened wild. Suddenly, he seemed a helpless child. Round 9, they'd washed the blood away, but bang, spouted bright and gay. His face was all a gory mask, and yet no mercy would he ask. Ah, yes, the boy was gallant game, yet I must down him all the same. Round 10, his eye like oyster gleamed. I could have blinded him, it seemed. Then as he weaved, faint and forlorn, strange pity in my heart was born. I dropped my hands into my side. For God's sake, strike me, lad, I cried. He struck me twice, 2 loving taps, as if he understood, perhaps. Then as the gong went like a knell, fainting into my arms he fell. We kissed each other, he and I. A draw, I heard the umpire cry.
Okay, so let's clear that off. And Frank, as you were not the reader tonight, would you like to start off with your first thoughts here?
Sure. My thoughts reading it, I was, well, if you had asked me a couple of weeks ago to name a topic that I would have expected, that I would not expect to be immortalized in poetry, a boxing match would be in the top 4, probably in the top 2. But having read it, I was very impressed. I liked the way there's almost a character arc for the Bruiser, that he starts out, he's going to win at any cost, and then he realizes that it's maybe winning at all cost is not the best way to do things, and it's okay to step back.
Well, and it's also kind of interesting because he doesn't exactly. It's not a 180 that he does, because it's not. I don't know if this makes sense. In my head, this is just a real distinction. You can tell me if it makes sense. To me, it's not as much that he is going to win at any cost; it's that he refuses to be beaten. That like you can do whatever you want to me, you are not going to beat me down. And I like that's kind of how I see it at the start, and he still does keep that because it's not. Well, it's at the end. It's not. He is better than me. I am beaten. I surrender. It's as a mark of friendship. Let's kind of finish. We'll finish together. And does that distinction make sense, or am I kind of adding something that's not there?
I think you're right. Yeah, he does talk about I am going to win this, but it's more in a more from the point of view that he views this match as a win or lose. There is no middle ground at the beginning to him. Now the draw surprised me because I thought that at least in more modern boxing matches, they have judges that will score the rounds, and so it's harder to have a draw. And if you don't have a knockout, then you can have, you win more rounds
by points.
Yeah.
And that sounds like it's a bit of an older score, like an older victory style of boxing. Because, if the thing went like the poem describes, then the kid would have won the match unless the Bruiser, basically killed him. Unless he laid that kid out, just done and down, then the kid's going to win.
Why is that? Because he should have lost?
No, the kid's going to beat him in modern boxing because he spent 7 rounds just zap, scoring points. Whereas the Bruiser is just waiting on him to get tired and then knock him out. In an older style of boxing, I guess if you're both standing at the end, then you're both standing at the end and it's a draw. But I guess, but like I said, in modern boxing, no, the boxer would have beat the Bruiser unless he got KO'd.
It does look like Hello? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It does look like to me, in terms of like getting to a draw, the fact that the other boxer hits him back, like it looks to me like that is part of the idea, part of the reason it's a draw, because it looks to me like the way for God's sake, strike me, lad. And it looks like if the other guy didn't punch him back, that he would be that like after all the blows he was landing, that still might have been a victory on his side. I don't know if, again, early 20th century bare knuckle boxing is not something I've made a great study of, nor practiced.
Nor have I.
But also, to the point of, to the point you said earlier, Frank, that like I wouldn't have expected a poem on this. And again, that's one of the reasons I do my poetry series and do these discussions, because it's like, by the way, there's a lot more things that poetry can do than a lot of you are probably aware of. And the other thing, and Robert W. Service definitely fits into this. It seems like today poetry, just for everyday ordinary people, like isn't really a thing.
Correct.
Like it's not, and And I don't think that's good. I think people are missing something, and I haven't recorded a lot of them yet, but if I get a few more together that would go under that category, I kind of would like to start a playlist that's just blue collar poetry. Um, and because I've done Edgar Guest, Only a Dad, and what's the other one? How Did You Die? Also would fit under that one. And it's something like, these things would be, printed in, newspapers, or like, or magazines like, pulp stories, and they would have, adventure stories, and they would also have like poems by people by Robert W. Service. And like I said, I think that going away, and I think poetry retreating to this tiny little corner, um, where most people don't really interact with it much, is not a good thing. I think we've lost something.
Yeah, some of that is because of the public school system. The teachers of poetry do not do a good job of it. It's like you are sitting there. It's like you're held hostage, and she just reads it dead. Listen, child, and you will hear the midnight ride of Paul Revere. Like, please shoot me now. Maybe the
if the British get here soon enough, they can shoot me before you finish reading this to us.
Yes.
Land doeth by sea, and just for the love of Christ, just get here. Do both of them. Freelance to let me know my salvation.
What was yeah, and and actually I recorded a video about this a couple weeks ago. If you look around YouTube, like, you can find other people recording poetry. And I'm not going to name any names, but I've listened to a few of them at different times. A lot of them don't seem to know how to put any emotion into it. And it's like, oh God. It's like
that, poetry is supposed to be the emotional writing. It's like, supposed to be the one that really gets to you. And yeah, hearing people just read it flat, like, these are words, these are more words, these are words that rhyme. Like, oh, I hate it.
But to get back to someone who is doing things right, the Bruiser, by Robert W. Service, and it's one thing I find kind of interesting in here, and I've kind of, I think I've actually heard people talk about this in terms of like boxers. There's kind of two different approaches, two different styles, and this is the meeting of those two. And one is kind of light, graceful, constantly moving, and you're not gonna land a blow. And the other one is, punch me as hard as you want, as often as you want. I'm not going down. You're going to get tired, and then I'll take you out. And like, seeing the meeting of these two in this story is an interesting thing too. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, so the kid is all technique, but he has no power. He flapped a left, he tapped a right. I'm like, yeah, okay, these are not, this is not a man, like, punching, like, manfully. And so he's probably got excellent technique, and he's wonderful and light, and his footwork's great, but, could you kill a man with that blow? Kind of thing. Right. And then the Bruiser's like, he says it right there. I am one with the solid ground. His footwork is, just, I'm a monolith, whatever. Come at me. It sounds like they could both use a little bit of work. They could train together and really get something going here. But, you said, Frank, that you're surprised to, see a poem about a boxing match. But to be honest, I'm not. Boxing and fighting in general is always seen as, somewhat of a poetic thing. Just, it's it's kinetic poetry. You know, it's the movements of two men, you know, engaged in attempts to harm each other. But you know, there it has its own rhythm, it has its own flow, that has its own cadence. Like if you watch a guy, you know, box, you'll start to figure out, yeah, okay, he's going to throw punches like, you know, jab, jab, hook, you know, jab, hook, uppercut, and you get this a sense of his timing. And then just kind of the way everything moves together, like really good boxers, you can tell that no, there's very much art in this. Canelo Alvarez, I see a video that comes up on Reddit like 3 or 4 times a year, and I always stop and watch it because it shows him he's training. He takes a bag and he just swings it away from himself. And as it comes in, he's got his hands up, he's in a stance, but he's not punching it. He's just sort of slipping it. And, you know, he kind of ducks around it, does all this stuff. And then they show him in a fight, and this person swings at him like literally 30 times in about 2 minutes. And he just ducks and slips basically all of it. And it is the most technically brilliant and skillfully inspiring thing there is to see, because you're like, God dang, man, you couldn't hit this guy with a bat. You'd just be like, nope, don't you kid me. You know, and so, like I said, the idea of putting that sort of, you know, that sort of rhythm into a poem actually makes perfect sense to me.
Could this be why I've heard that Muhammad Ali was a better than average poet, that he could do extemporaneous poetry?
It could be. But, I mean, yeah, you can't take, you know, every movement, right? You can't respond to just, oh, okay, he's throwing a jab with his right hand. I'm going to do the preset thing. You kind of got to figure that, okay, yeah, when he jabs like that, you know, he favors a hook to the body, and then he'll come, you know, with another cross to the head, right? So you got to react to all three things sort of at once. Like you see it coming, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to react to the whole thing. And so it makes it, like I said, it really adds to the rhythm. You're not going thing, reaction, thing, reaction, thing, reaction. Fun. You're like, he's going to do kind of this, and so I'm going to react that way. Because nobody's got the reaction time to see the punch start one at a time and react to all of them. And so, yeah, you kind of get a feel for forms and the flow of things. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, you know, being a decent boxer, giving you an ability to, you know, with poetry and rhythm, and just like I can see that kind of thought for words translating into actions, because again, you see the whole pattern at once instead of seeing block.
Another interesting thing about this poem is I think it shows it also, like, you know, in very short form, shows like a template of, you know, kind of masculine friendship. And you know, because it starts with, you know, just it's competition, and you know, I'm going, like, you know, 2 men coming into this, I'm going to win, you know, we're after the same thing, I'm going to get it, you're not. And in that competition, like, you know, seeing this person put out their best, seeing them strive, you come to develop a kind of respect for them, even if your goal is to defeat them. Mm-hmm. And it's you know, I think that is an interesting picture of, like I said, you know, kind of masculine friendship and how men understand each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can even see it in the second stanza. You know, he says, like dancing master, you know, graceful and light, a boxer's joy. Yeah, he's you know, sitting there getting punched by this dude, and he's like, man, he is very skilled. Like he has worked on this. He's capable and skilled. And, you know, I really respect this guy. And then, you know, later on, as he starts his attack, you know, says, yes, the boy was gallant game. You know, he's like, I have damaged this person badly, and he's still after it. So skilled, you know, he's got the heart. And so, yeah, and he's still trying even in round 10. And finally he's like, okay, look, I can't just rip apart someone who I've come to respect this much.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. You seem a decent fellow. I'd hate to die.
Exactly that kind of thing. And so, yeah, no, it's actually kind of a beautiful story, although the holy kissed each other is an awkward ending, but okay.
I think in a healthier culture that doesn't come across the way it does today.
No,
I think the fact that stands out to us is a mark of a problem with us, not with Robert's service or his day. Yeah. But well, and it's also kind of interesting because he the Bruiser, the main character, the protagonist, the speaker in this poem, he's admiring in his opponent exactly the opposite things of himself. He's saying, like, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at. He's really good at this other stuff. In fact, graceful and light, a boxer's joy. Like the Bruiser, in flat out competition, like if he hadn't chosen to kind of let go at a little bit, he would have won this. But it also sounds like if you're in the audience, the other guy is giving them a better show. The other guy is much more interesting to watch. Just watching a guy who can take a beating for 20 minutes, okay, but this other guy is like moving and dodging and and like Nate said, has all this technique, and is probably was probably also a fan favorite through a lot of this. Although I hadn't that hadn't occurred to me before. There is,
Bruiser, frankly.
Sorry, what?
I always root for the Bruiser. I always want to see somebody. Oh yeah, okay, you're fancy, nice dancing, kid. And just strike him with thunder and nope, done, ball game. That's what I liked about Chuck Liddell back when he was fighting, because it'd be like, oh man, it's like, yeah, he's on him. Oh man, Liddell's backed up in the corner. He's up against the cage. Oh my God, Chuck Liddell wins. Thunderous overhand counter punch. He's down. He's out. He may be dead. And it's just like, he'd be, back up there getting, just getting plastered. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, the moment's here. Boom! Hits him with a comet to the face, and they're just, hello, world-class fighter.
Well,
go to sleep.
This hadn't occurred to me before, which is also one reason it's interesting to have these conversations. I just realized there is no reference to the audience in this poem. There's no reference, and that is an interesting omission. It's like the
commitment to the fight. Like he's like, I'm not worried about all those extraneous people. It's me and it's him, and the rest of you, you'll exist once this is all over.
Yeah, I think that is kind of what that kind of says, but I did not realize that until now, because I mean, if they're doing this for an audience, but there's no mention of them at all. And yeah, it's because to this guy, that's not the point. I mean, that is what's getting him paid, but he's not especially interested in what they might happen to think, which is also interesting.
Now, what I will say to critique the Bruisers, I think he probably could have started attacking a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
If you can shrug off his blows that easily, one of the best ways to make sure you score a hit is to accept a hit. While he's hitting you, you hit him much harder. And, start doing that in the third or fourth round, sort of start whapping him real good. Just he comes in to throw his, his little combos and you just deck him. You'll probably have him down by the sixth or eighth rather than to stand all the way through 10. And then maybe
that is actually something I've heard Vox Day talk about both in the literal and metaphorical sense. That whenever someone goes on an attack, by necessity, they have to leave themselves open for an attack as well. And he's done martial arts to some extent, and he says you can definitely see that there. And he was also talking about in terms of politics and culture war. If someone lashes out at you, if you can keep your head together and look at what's going on, that will give you an opportunity to strike back at them. And that it doesn't, like Nate said, it doesn't seem like the Bruiser was a good strategist in that regard and did not take advantage of these opportunities.
My sons do Taekwondo, and one night they at practice there was an odd number of people, so the teacher had the biggest guy in the room. He was an adult and tall and big, and the teacher put him against both of my sons. They were 12 and 14, maybe 11 and 13 at the time, and they got in their stance, and I heard one of them say, "Go left," and they split. And they came at Mr. Spurgeon from opposite directions, and he's just like, "Who do I go for?"
See, that was if that was genuinely, I would like to win this. That was a bad move on his part because he paired brothers who know each other and can co-op and probably spend a fair bit of time fighting, but also can cooperate when they need to.
Yeah.
The operative move in that one is probably fall back. Try and get them in front of you again. Anyway, no, I really enjoyed this.
Well, it's and it's also kind of funny because in terms of the way the poem is built, rounds 1 through 7, which is if you take into account of the breaks 10 or 15 minutes, is not really described at all. It's just a rush, and he's basically just sitting there. He's like, okay, this is let him wear himself out, and he gets to round 8 and he says, okay, now that he's tired, now that he's worn down, now it's time to go. And then that last half is taken in detail, which is again an interesting way to kind of structure the whole thing. There's almost no very very light focus on that first part, and then describing in detail how the last section goes.
Because the first part of the fight is mostly just endurance. He's going, yep, there's no result. He's like, yep, the kid sort of sat there and sprayed me with little bitty punches, and I didn't do much to him.
It would be very interesting to have an actual boxer go through this. Well, it's also I guess it's also different because today it's a different kind of game than when they did it. For one thing, as far as Robert Service was describing an actual one, which he probably watched a few. They probably looked about like this. Not these big padded gloves, which changes the game substantially. It's actually you've seen the old pictures that look like this. The boxers always have, and I actually saw I read an article a little while ago that describes that and why they're in this pose, because they also don't have gloves, and if you don't have gloves, for the most part, you don't actually want to hit up here, because this is very hard, and this hurts your bare hands. So if you don't have gloves, you tend to go more for the chest, and because of that, that's why that shaped how kind of thing. And so the boxing matches, they actually did have this pose like during the fight. That wasn't just a weird thing they did for the pictures.
Yeah, Jack Dempsey changed all that.
What changed it all?
Jack Dempsey. Yeah, came up with the Dempsey roll, which is kind of that hunched over posture, and you just he tore people to pieces.
So sounds like
Basically,
you're
paradigm to the fight.
So you're quite the boxing fan?
No, it's just things I picked up here and there.
Apparently more than either of us.
I like to understand sort of the tactics of a fight. But frankly, if I'm going to watch a fight, boxing is the last thing I'm going to pick. Because these days,
what's higher on?
It's more these days. It seems like it's more about don't get beaten rather than win. Like there's not a whole lot of necessity to knock a man out. You can just sit there and try and dink and doink him for however many rounds, come up with enough points to win, and you win. It's like, okay, fighting for points is boring.
Okay, here, let me take a look at this again. Yeah, I guess I covered most of the things I wanted to say here. So, Nate, how about you? Are there any big ideas you wanted to get in here that you did not cover?
In this, as in many things, it's better to be strong than be fancy. There's going to be a lot of times where people want you to be, ooh, you need to, be more stylish or be more this or be more that. But frankly, endurance has a style all of its own. There are things that stick around because they're good. They're useful and they are powerful. And it works that way whether you're fighting, riding horses, shooting guns, working with tools, building life philosophies. Typically things that are fancy and dancy, they'll end up eventually falling before the things that will last. If you can pick your things with any sort of a trait, pick endurance.
And what is it's plain and practical is definitely a better choice than flashy but ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Frank, Luke? Anything else? Any last thoughts you wanted to add on this one?
But I was thinking that this is the scene in the buddy cop movie where they go from enemies to allies.
Oh. I mean, this is Rocky.
Yeah. This is the
this
is the Sarge with the rookie that he doesn't like, and then okay, you know what? This kid, I can teach him some stuff, and the kid's like, maybe I can learn some stuff from him.
That actually reminded me of something, though. I had meant to say about this. This actually reminds me a little bit of the ending. I feel a little silly. Oh well, of the Pixar movie Cars, and there's the race, and the one guy gets into the one guy on his last race gets into a wreck, and instead of winning, winning the race, which he easily could have at that point, Lightning elects to stop, go back, and push the other guy across the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
No, I had that thought too.
And yeah. Okay, well, then it's been an interesting conversation, and thank you both for joining me. Hopefully, sometime before too long, Frank will be joining me and Overgrown Hobbit to cover a short story instead of a poem. We'll see if we can get that together. And in the meantime, good night, and God be with you.
So with you.
And also with you.